Getting the right motherboard to make an ideal PC can be a difficult task. With so many options available, it can be hard to decide which one to choose. In this video, we will walk you through the top 7 motherboards for Ryzen 5 3600. So whether you're looking for a budget build, a motherboard that allows lots of customization, or something more solid that will last, we'll have an option for you. I'll also leave the links to the discussed motherboard in the description. You can check them for more information and the latest prices. Starting our list with Asus ROG X570 Crosshair 8 Hero. The Asus 8 Hero is a difficult one to ignore when talking about the best motherboards for AMD Ryzen processors. Aesthetically, the motherboard looks luxurious with an all-black PCB covered in heatsinks and a large rear I/O cover. The heatsinks over the power circuitry are black with inlets. The rear I/O cover is divided into 3 parts, the top one with a brushed aluminum finish and Crosshair 8 carved onto it. Under it, over a stripe with shiny silver finishing, is written Hero with integrated RGB lighting. The shiny silver stripe extends all the way to the bottommost M2 heatsink. Over the chipset heatsink, we have the classic ROG emblem lightened up with RGB. All the RGB can be customized through the Asus AuraSync software. Along with the design of the performance of the motherboard is also the reason this motherboard sits at the top of our list. The Hero hosts a 14 plus 2 VRM design surrounded by 2 massive heatsinks. A heat pipe extends from the heatsinks to the I/O cover, increasing the overall surface area for better heat dissipation. There is a dedicated heatsink for each M2 slot and an actively cooled chipset heatsink with a fan rated at 60,000 hours. In short, the power delivery and thermal performance of this motherboard are one of the best and even comparable to some of the X399 motherboards that are extremely robust. As for the memory section, it can accommodate up to 128 GB of DDR4 RAM at 5100 MHz overclock speeds. The Crosshair 8 Hero is equipped with a duo of M2 slots and 8 SATA 3 ports. Both the M2 slots have dedicated heatsinks and support PCIe Gen 4 SSD. Some motherboards offer 3 M2 slots at a similar price range, however. Most users won't even utilize the second slot. Moreover, there are 2 PCIe 4.0x16 reinforced slots and another normal PCIe 4.0x16 slot. A PCIe 4.0x1 slot is also provided. The features on this motherboard just keep getting better as we move on. Even the rear I/O port has no flaws. It features 12 USB ports arranged in the following way: 7 USB 3.2 Gen 2, Type-A ports, 1 USB 3.2 Gen 2, Type-C port, and 4 USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports. You can connect all USB devices you like and still have ports remaining. Moreover, a BIOS flashback button and a Clear CMOS button are also present. 2 LAN ports have been provided for network connectivity. Lastly, it has an optical S/PD IF out port and 5 gold-plated audio jacks, powered by the ROG Supreme FX S1220 codec. All things considered, the Asus ROG X570 Crosshair 8 Hero is basically a motherboard with no flaws except for its high price. This motherboard comprises top-quality VRM, exceptional thermals, premium aesthetics, and numerous connectivity options, which make it the best X570 motherboard for Ryzen 5 3600. At number 2, it's Asus TUF Gaming X570 Plus. There's a reason why Asus owns the crown in the motherboard market. Their motherboards never fail to impress. Unsurprisingly enough, their TUF Gaming X570 Plus has managed to grab the second spot on our list, thanks to its moderate pricing and well-rounded feature set. Their TUF Gaming lineup is one step lower from their flagship Crosshair or ROG lineup. It is particularly targeted toward gamers on a budget who are looking for a no-fuss option. Starting off with aesthetics, the X570 Plus features the trademark TUF Gaming color scheme, which is black and yellow. There are a bit of gray accents on the PCB as well, which creates an attractive color contrast. RGB LED can be found under the right-hand side of the board and around the chipset heatsink. Speaking of heatsinks, the X570 Plus packs stylish, decent-sized heatsinks with brandings on them. The aesthetics are great, but this motherboard's main concern revolves around delivering excellent performance. To achieve this, it makes use of a 12+2 VRM design with 50A MOSFETs capable of delivering up to 480 a current output. In simplified terms, this setup is more than enough to handle a 3600 on stock and overclock settings. We also recommend getting a budget CPU cooler for that extra push and added aesthetics. The cooling rituals are performed by medium-sized heat sinks joined together by a direct touch heat pipe. An actively cooled chipset heatsink keeps the X570 chipset far from overheating. All of this combined with legendary Asus reliability means that the TUF Gaming X570 Plus will not disappoint you, at least for a long time. The X570 Plus houses 4 DIMM slots featuring a dual-channel architecture, allowing you to install 128 GB RAM on your rig. This time around, we only get to see 2 M2 slots, both supporting the PCIe 4.0 interface, instead of 3. Both slots support NVMe and SATA accelerated drives, and also come with dedicated heatsinks. Further, 8 SATA 3.6 GB per seconds ports are also given. The primary GPU slot is an Asus safe slot and operates at PCIe 4.0 x 16 speeds. In addition to the primary slot, a PCIe 4.0 x 4 slot and a PCIe 0.0 x 1 expansionary slot are also included. One thing that Asus could have done better is that they could have provided more USB ports on the back panel. There are 7 USB ports in total. 3 USB 3.1 Gen 2, including 1 Type-C, and 4 USB 3.1 Gen 1. However, you can always add a USB hub for extra ports. But other than that, the I/O panel ticks all boxes. PS/2 combo port, HDMI display port, 2.5G LAN, BIOS flashback, and ClearC MOS buttons. The X570 Plus has it all. The audio department consists of 5 3.5mm audio jacks and an optical S/PDIF, the usual stuff. A Realtek ALC S1200 audio codec is installed to handle the audio side of things. To sum up, the Asus TUF Gaming X570 Plus is a superb mid-range motherboard aimed at hardcore gamers. For this reason, it claims the title of the best gaming motherboard for Ryzen 5 3600. At number 3, it's Gigabyte B550 Aorus Master. The B550 Aorus Master is currently one of the most capable B550 motherboards that money can buy. Gigabyte's motherboards always have that trademark Gigabyte elegance when it comes to aesthetics. You can easily tell by looking at this board that this is a premium product. We're talking about an all-black PCB with very stylish heatsinks that feature a brushed aluminum finish. There's not a lot of RGB to look for. The only elements of RGB lighting are present on the shroud and on a small portion of the VRM heatsinks. Nonetheless, there are 8 4-pin fan headers along with 5 dedicated RGB headers to cater to all your lighting requirements like RGB fans or RGB strips. The Aorus emblem, which is a trademark feature of the Aorus lineup, is engraved on the chipset heatsink. Moving on to the good stuff, the performance, this motherboard has got what it takes to handle the most power-intensive CPU. Thanks to a monster 16-phase VRM arranged in a 14+2 pattern with 78 power stages, the B550 Aorus Master can handle subsequent overclocking with great ease. Pair this top-notch VRM with an advanced heatsink system, and the results are incredible. A fins array heatsink connected to a thermal heat pipe and base plates is used for effective heat dissipation. The bottom line, the B550 Aorus Master allows you to overclock your Ryzen 5 3600 without any major signs of thermal throttling. The B550 Aorus Master allows you to store up to 128 GB of DDR4 memory at 5200 MHz plus advertised speeds. There are 3 M2 slots that operate at PCIe 4.0 x 4 speeds. The primary slot allows both SATA and PCIe devices, while the other 2 only offer support for PCIe drives. 6 SATA 6 GB per seconds ports are also provided alongside, although we would have loved to see 8 at this price tag. On the graphics side of things, we have a full-length PCIe 4.0 x 16 slot along with 2 full-length PCIe 3.0 x 4 slots. This setting is more than enough for most users, but if you were hoping for more, then you might want to go for a higher-end X570 motherboard. Moreover, there is no support for SLI or Crosshair, so be mindful of that. The rear I/O panel is quite a busy one as we get to C12 USB ports on the B550 Aorus Master. 6 of these ports are USB 3.2 Gen 2, including a Type-C, while the other 6 are USB 2.0. Gigabyte has also provided a complete networking package, which includes a Wi-Fi 6 at X200 controller along with a 2.5 GB Ethernet port. The audio stack consists of 5 analog audio jacks and an optical S/PDIF, all fueled by Realtek's ALC1220VB audio codec. Lastly, the option of HDMI connectivity is also available. All in all, the B550 Aorus Master is a highly capable motherboard packed with tons of features. It takes a hit due to its awfully high price tag, but that doesn't change the fact that it is still one of the best B550 motherboards for Ryzen 5 3600. At number 4, it's MSI Mag B550 Tomahawk. As we saw, the B550 Aorus Master is a true enthusiast motherboard with a hefty price tag. With the Tomahawk, MSI has managed to bring down the price tag to a massive extent without compromising much on features. MSI has taken a minimalistic approach when it comes to the Tomahawk's aesthetics. Right off the bat, we get to see a black and gray themed PCB. The same theme is carried on to the massive heatsinks that take up a significant amount of space on the board. When companies produce a budget motherboard, they often exclude RGB lighting to minimize costs. This is not the case with the Tomahawk, as MSI has fitted RGB LED under the chipset heatsink. The lighting can be controlled via MSI Dragon Center software, and it makes the board all that more pleasing to look at. The Mag B550 Tomahawk houses a 13-phase VRM configured in a 10+2+1 setting. The 6D-A MOSFETs are cooled by 2 chunky VRM heatsinks that perform incredibly under heavy workloads. We subjected it to a series of tests with the 3600 and were quite impressed by the Tomahawk's performance. MSI has also included M2 Frozr shields to ensure optimal performance of your solid-state drives. A water pump header and 8 PWM/DC fan headers are also provided. Thus, we can safely conclude that this motherboard provides decent overclocking headroom on the Ryzen 5 3600. Like every other B550 ATX board, the Tomahawk supports up to 128 GB RAM at 5100 MHz max frequencies. There are 2 M2 slots, one of which supports PCIe 4x4 while the other slot is capped at PCIe 3x4. Alongside the M2 slots, you get 6 SATA connectors rated at 6 GB per second. In the middle of the board, we have a primary PCIe 4x16 slot and a secondary PCIe 3x16 slot. Furthermore, 2 PCIe 3x1 slots powered by the B550 chipset are also provided. One feature that even the Aorus Master failed to provide is included in the B550 Tomahawk, and that is two-way AMD Crosshair. It is worth mentioning that the Mag B550 Tomahawk from MSI has its dark sides too. The I/O panel, for example, is quite ill-equipped with only 6 USB ports, 2 of which are USB 3.2 Gen 2. The absence of integrated Wi-Fi is also a bummer that can be fixed using a PCIe Wi-Fi card. What you do get, however, are 2 Ethernet ports rated at 1 GBE and 2.5 GB. A standard 5-pin audio stack with optical S/PDIF is provided. The audio department is managed by Realtek's ALC1200 codec, which is better than what most competitors provide at this price. Long story short, the MSI Mag B550 Tomahawk motherboard is a solid motherboard that you can get at an extremely reasonable price point. Its superb performance and spot-on pricing make it the best budget motherboard for Ryzen 5 3600 on our list. At number 5, it says ROK B550M Steel Legend. It seems as if ROK has designed this motherboard with an intention to strike the eye. A black PCB with camo patterns, especially around the socket, paired with shiny silver heatsinks really jumps off the page. Along with that, ROK has gone with subtle RGB placement that adds a flair to the board. Over the rear I/O cover, we see an S engraved that too illuminates with RGB. Even the all-in-one chipset heatsink is one busy-looking heatsink with a gray triangular pattern towards the right for contrast. Although the board is compact, it definitely is stylish looking. However, if you're an RGB lover, you can install an RGB controller for fans and LED strips since the motherboard has limited RGB headers. As ROC has gone with a 10-phase VRM design with 50 AD RMOS paired with an 8+4 high-density power connector. It ensures smooth power delivery and also improves thermal performance along with reduced power loss. The heatsinks also work hand-in-hand with VRM by driving heat away and keeping the VRM cool for an uninterrupted experience. Not only that, but the all-in-one heatsink over the B550 chipset and the M2 slot also prevent thermal throttling. In conclusion, the Steel Legend is a capable motherboard in terms of performance. However, you must not expect out-of-the-park overclocking performance. In terms of memory, it features 4 DIMM slots that support 128 GB of RAM at 4733 plus MHz overclock speeds. For the storage department, there are 2 M2 slots along with 6 SATA 3 ports. Moreover, the primary M2 slot also has PCIe 4.0 support. However, it must be noted that lanes are shared among the second M2 slot and SATA 3, 5, 6 ports, so using one disables the other. Furthermore, the board features 2 full-length PCIe slots, out of which the primary supports PCIe Gen 4. Since the motherboard does not have any Wi-Fi module, you can install a PCIe Wi-Fi module in the provided PCIe 3x1 slot. Speaking of the rear I/O panel, it has a pre-mounted shield and a decent amount of ports. As for the USB ports, it features 2 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A and Type-C ports, along with 4 USB 3.2 Gen 1 and 2 USB 2.0 ports. A single LAN port is also provided, making use of the Dragon 2.5G module. An HDMI and a display port are also included for onboard graphics, which however might not be useful when paired with the 3600. The audio codec used here is the Realtek ALC 1200, which provides rich audio through the 5 gold-plated audio jacks. With that said, the ASRock B550M Steel Legend is the best micro ATX motherboard for Ryzen 5 3600 packed with excellent features and performance. It also comes at an affordable price point, which is the cherry on top. At number 6, it's Gigabyte B450 Aorus Pro Wi-Fi. This motherboard is a sweet spot for users who don't need PCIe 4.0 speeds but want a premium experience. Gigabyte's Aorus motherboards give off a classic premium vibe that just screams the Aorus name. The B450 Aorus Pro Wi-Fi is also one stylish and sleek-looking board with a black and silver theme going around. It boasts shiny silver, VRM, and chipset heatsinks with orange accents that add an Aorus vibe to the board. The rear I/O cover also carries on the black and silver theme with Aorus carved on the silver part, with RGB illuminating it. It looks as if the I/O cover is taken straight out of a Transformers movie. More RGB can be seen bottom left of the motherboard and the backlit Aorus Falcon over the chipset heatsink. Well, enough of aesthetics, now let's move on to the function of this board. It offers an 11-phase VRM in an 8+3 design with phase doublers. The cooling rituals are done by 2 fairly large-sized heatsinks that perform decent enough to even overclock the 3600. They are further aided in dissipating the heat by the large I/O cover. We tested out different coolers with the Ryzen 5 3600 and B450 Aorus Pro Wi-Fi configuration. The fractal design Celsius plus S24 Prisma produced the best thermal results at 4.3 GHz. The Aorus Pro Wi-Fi is packed with 4 DIMM slots based on a dual memory architecture that supports 128 GB RAM at 3600 MHz speeds. There are 2 PCIe 3.0 x4 X2 slots for M2 SSD that support both PCIe and SATA SSD. 6 SATA 3 ports are also provided. As for the expansion slots, 3 full-length slots and 1 X1 slot are available. However, only the primary X16 slot supports PCIe 3.0, whereas the remaining slots conform to PCIe 2. The I/O panel is quite underwhelming. giving you 6 USB ports to play with. 2 of these ports are USB 3.1 Gen 2, including a Type-C, while the rest are USB 3.1 Gen 1. A 1 GB Ethernet Intel controller handles the networking, and HDMI DVI-D connectivity is also provided. Also located on the back panel are 5 analog audio jacks and 1 digital audio jack, all powered by an ALC1220VB codec by Realtek. All in all, Gigabyte's B458 Aorus Pro Wi-Fi is an ultimate value motherboard for its price and feature set. It is pretty much the best B450 motherboard for Ryzen 5 3600 that the market has to offer. At number 7, it's ASRock B450M Steel Legend. We saw how the B550M Steel Legend was packed with amazing aesthetics and adept power delivery. Similarly, its predecessor, the B450M Steel Legend, is also a capable motherboard for the Ryzen 5 3600 and even cheaper. The B450M Steel Legend is very similar to its successor, the B550M Steel Legend, in terms of looks. Near the CPU socket, we have the same camo theme on the PCB surrounded by silver VRM heatsinks. A minor difference can be seen on the former's rear I/O cover, as instead of an S, there is a cutout with RGB lighting. Moreover, the chipset heatsink is also smaller with RGB all around it. All the RGB can be configured using polychrome software. In terms of performance, it features a 6-phase power design with premium 60A chokes for rock-solid durability. Moreover, the alloy heatsinks responsible to keep the thermals in check do a fine job at stock settings. The chipset heatsink also prevents the B450 chipset from heating. However, there are no heatsinks for any of the M2 slots, so you might want to look for an aftermarket heatsink for your M2 NVMe drive. In short, the B450M offers the bare minimum performance required for the Ryzen 5 3600, so overclocking is out of the books. Moving on to the expansion slots, the board features 2 full-length PCIe slots. However, there is no support for PCIe 4.0, so you only get to see PCIe Gen 3 and Gen 2 interfaces on these slots. Storage is also quite limited since there are only 4 SATA 3 ports and 2 M2 slots. Not only that, but the second M2 port shares lanes with SATA 3, so you can use only one at a time. Lastly, the memory support is up to 128 GB at 3533 plus MHz speeds, so no issues there. The rear I/O panel features 8 USB ports, which is quite impressive considering that even the premium Asus TUF Gaming X570 Plus has only 7 ports. There are 2 USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports Type-A and Type-C each, 4 USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports, and 2 USB 2.0 ports. Moreover, there is an HDMI port, a display port, and an optical S/PDIF out port. For wired connectivity, there is an RJ45 LAN port using the Realtek Gigabit LAN module. A nice inclusion is the ASRock full spike protection for the ports, which negates or minimizes the damage caused by power spikes. All in all, ASRock B450M Steel Legend is a solid budget AM4 motherboard for those who require just the bare minimum performance with no overclocking or any premium features. Also, for that very reason, it is titled as the best cheap motherboard for Ryzen 5 3600. Not to mention, there are even cheaper options like A320 motherboards. However, we suggest you only get them temporarily if you are extremely restricted on budget. And with that, we come to the end of our review.